Hi, and welcome to the 10-Minute Food Truck Training Podcast. My name is Bill Moore, founder of foodtrucktraining.group. Today, I'm talking about getting started with a tent setup. For many folks, the entry cost for a food truck is just simply out of reach when they start their food business, and they'll opt for what is considered the least expensive way to start, and that is with a tent. The idea sounds so easy, just a tent plus a crock pot plus a table equals business. Well, it's not quite that simple. There are as many pros as there are cons when you're starting a tent business. First, the permitting is virtually the same. You're still going to be selling food to the public, so you still have to have those kind of licenses, and you have to meet whatever other requirements your state has. And then you're also going to consider the county and the city. You might save on a couple of different permits that you don't need comparing a food truck to a tent setup, but you're not saving that much. And you got to understand there's going to be restrictions on what can be prepped, what can be cooked, and what can be sold from a tent. And it varies ridiculously wildly from area to area. Some tents can pretty much be a full restaurant, and others they can't hardly sell lemonade from. So the tent is going to need equipment, and it doesn't really matter what you sell. The more complex the menu, the more equipment you need. But think about this, equipment's heavy. Refrigeration is heavy. Fryers are heavy. Tents take considerable amount of time to set up. A food truck can pull up and really be open in about 20 minutes. It could take 2 hours to set up a tent with all the equipment and the moving and so forth. Preparing for your future business growth means using commercial equipment. And that commercial equipment is significantly heavier than the lighter and cheaper home equipment. You're going to need some type of hand wash station. Could be very complex, could be super simple like a bucket with water that drains into an empty bucket. But the fact is you're going to have at least a hand wash station, and a lot of areas require a 3-compartment sink setup as well. Now, water's heavy. A lot of people don't realize, but water weighs 8 pounds a gallon. So moving even a small tank at 20 gallons, pretty difficult to lift that by yourself. And you certainly can't lift it up to get into the back of a pickup truck or a van. So you got to consider the weight. Tents are usually required to be flame resistant or flame retardant. And of course, they cost more than just a typical pop-up tent would cost. Wind is your enemy if you're using a tent, especially on clear days when you don't think there's any kind of breeze. All it takes is about 15 to 20 miles an hour and your tent is toppled over. And that can happen again on a clear day. There are a lot of areas that regulate what type of food can be cooked, and they prevent traditional cooking completely, or they require screens. And so you have to set up an area where part of the tent is partitioned off to cook in that's completely screened in, and then the food is passed out to a table or wherever to get it to your guest. So it's not as easy as just buying a tent, buying a crock pot, and getting set up. And then you always have to deal with the ground. Dry conditions lead to dust and grit getting into places you really don't want it to get into, like your food. And then the opposite, wet conditions make it really tedious to set up. Stuff will dig ruts, be unlevel. It's just annoying. And of course, you got to deal with slipping and falling. Then you got to deal with the regulations. A lot of jurisdictions won't let you cook unless it's on pavement. They want it to be a sealed flooring environment. So you can't just pull up into a park and set up on the grass. The teardown time, it takes way longer to reload every single piece of equipment. Now think about this. Where are you going to clean it? Are you going to clean it there on site and then pack it? Or are you going to tear the site down, move it into your tow vehicle or your van or truck, and then drive somewhere and clean it there, which means you're moving it yet again. Now understand, there are some highly profitable foods that you can do out of a tent. There's lemonade shake-ups, there are all the different kinds of citrus fruit shake-ups. You got cotton candy, you got kettle corn, you have things like that are staples in a fair environment, staples in a festival environment, and they are easy to do and they're high profit. So you can make a whole bunch of money in a little bit of time. And most of the equipment associated with those is fairly easy to move. You know, kettle corn, you can get a machine that is already on wheels and you can just wheel it back and forth. Not very difficult at all. Cotton candy machines aren't that heavy, even if you have 2 or 3 of them. You know, lemonade, all the machines are handheld basically. The biggest issue with the lemonade stand would be having a prep sink so you can wash all the lemons. But again, those are single pieces of equipment, very easy to set up, high profitability. And a lot of people do them and make good money and never graduate to anything else because they got their work down. Lots of profit, short amount of time. The bottom line, if you're wanting to grow yourself into a food truck and you have to start inexpensively with a tent, you want to pick a food to sell from that tent that is easy for you to execute, requiring very little equipment, and whatever equipment you do have is easy to move. Then once you've picked out that particular aspect of your business, then you're going to do all the other things that we talk about, getting all your licenses and certifications and figuring out where you're going to sell, do your marketing, your social media, those kind of things. So nothing else changes. So keep it simple. Don't think that you can wheel out 3 fryers and sell chicken wings, because it's not going to happen. You're going to hate life after doing that 2 or 3 times. The key word, if you're going to do a tent, is to keep it simple. Thank you guys so much for listening. I certainly hope you're finding all the information on the podcast useful and helpful in your food truck business. And if you are, please consider hitting that support button or one of the links in the description below. Help us out in any way that you can. I cherish everything you guys are able to do for me. If you love being around like-minded positive people, join our Facebook group. It's called Food Truck Training. There you're going to find a ton of free information. You're going to find a ton of supportive and inspirational people. We have awesome membership, and I would love for you guys to join. You guys have a great day. Come back tomorrow. I will have one more topic.